Conformément à l'article 103A du règlement,
Pursuant to Standing Order 103,
élection à la présidence, I must inform members that the clerk committee can only receive motions for the election of chair. The clerk cannot receive other types of motions, cannot entertain points of order, nor participate in debate. Conformément à l'article 106.2 du règlement,
Pursuant to Standing Order 106.2, the chair must be a member of the official opposition. I am ready to receive motions for the chair.
Madame Manon.
Madame la Présidente,
Ms. Maynard, Madam Chair, it's with a lot of enthusiasm that I would like to nominate Dominique Vien as chair of the Status of Women Committee. Thank you. Are there other motions? Is it the committee's pleasure to adopt the motion? Thank you.
Motion adopted and Madame Bien elected chair of the committee. In the absence of the chair, I invite Ms. Khalid, vice chair, to take the chair.
We'll just suspend for a couple of minutes, folks. I think we are ready to bring in our witnesses, and I see that they are here. Madame Maynard.
Madame la Présidente, juste avant d'accueillir.
Madam Chair, before we welcome our witnesses, can we check with the clerk if we've received a proposal for the availability of the Minister of Justice to appear before the committee?
If the committee agrees, so the Minister of Justice has sent in a notice that he is available to appear to speak on Bill C-16. If the committee agrees, then we can go ahead and schedule him in if members are okay with that. Okay, not hearing any. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Menard.
Je serais en faveur d'accueillir le ministre.
I would be in favor of having the Minister of Justice come. This committee has often wanted to ask questions of the minister, but so since he's available on April 21st, in just a few days, I'm glad to hear his availability.
That's great. So are members on this side okay with that? We were talking about the Minister of Justice having made himself available to come to speak to us about Bill C-16 on the 21st of April from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Is that okay? Yeah. So we'll go ahead and schedule that in then. All right. We'll move on now to our witnesses. So welcome to meeting number 32 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Status of Women. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Wednesday, December 10, 2025, the committee will resume its study of abuse and financial vulnerability of senior women. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. Thank you, witnesses. So before we continue, I'd ask all in-person participants to consult the guidelines written on the cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including interpreters. You will also notice a QR code, folks, on the card, which links to a short awareness video. I would also like to make a few comments for the benefit of members and witnesses. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself once you've done speaking or are not speaking. For those on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you can select the appropriate channel for interpretation, either floor or English or French, so that you can effectively hear what everybody is saying here in the room. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and for those on Zoom, if you use your raise hand function, I can see that from here as well. As a reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair, and I do encourage everybody to be cordial and respectful in the comments that we make today. So just introducing the panel of speakers today. Association Féministe d'Éducation et d'Action Sociale. That's Lise Courtois, Hélène Corniele. Those are those two. And then we have Canadian Centre for Women's Empowerment, represented by Messeret Halireusus. And then we have Saidam Food Bank, represented by Vishal Khanna. So each of you will have 5 minutes to speak. We'll start with the Association Féministe d'Éducation d'Action Sociale. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. Our association would like to thank you for the invitation to appear as part of your work on the mistreatment and financial vulnerability of seniors. Since it was founded in 1966, our association has been dedicated to promoting gender equality at all levels of society. Our association has about 5,000 members organized into local and regional chapters, each governed by a board of directors. Regarding the situation of seniors, Statistics Canada reported between 2020 and 2021 a 2.5% increase in the number of people aged 65 and over living below the poverty line. 3 main factors affect women more severely than men and put them at greater risk of financial insecurity and abuse: lower retirement income, the lack of recognition for unpaid work, and isolation. Regarding income, a 2019 study by Ruth Rose on the situation of older adults in Quebec shows that older women, 47%, rely more heavily than men, 31%, on public pension programs. This gap stems, among other things, from the lower wages earned by women who are predominantly confined to undervalued jobs, so-called female jobs, and from more frequent absences from the labor market due to family obligations, such as being mothers and caregivers. Regarding unpaid work, many older adults, especially women, provide assistance within the family. This may involve babysitting during school breaks or strikes and caring for relatives who are losing their independence. This essential assistance results in additional expenses for older women. many of whom are already stretching their meager incomes to the limit. On the issue of isolation, various studies indicate that women, older caregivers, people with low incomes, Indigenous seniors, immigrants, LGBTQ plus seniors, and those living in rural or remote areas are more likely to experience isolation. On the issue of abuse, older women experience various forms of violence and abuse, including psychological and financial abuse from family members or people who assist them in their daily lives. More recently, seniors have also been victims of financial fraud that deprive them of the savings they accumulated for their later years. Finally, regarding homelessness, in Quebec between 2022 and 2025, the number of visible homeless men and women increased by 20%. Furthermore, recently released figures did not reflect the situation of women, for whom there is a shortage of shelters and who are more likely to experience violence, particularly sexual violence. Nor do they reflect hidden homelessness, which is difficult to quantify. Taking into account the precarious situation of many older Canadian women, our association recommends that the federal government undertake changes to retirement programs based on a gender-based analysis, that it base retirement programs on personal income rather than family income to support women's financial security, that it provide women who have cared for children or relatives with a supplement to the basic old age security benefit, that it index the old age security benefit, the guaranteed income supplement, and any other retirement-related income replacement measures to the cost of living, that it ensure that public pension plans provide all retirees with minimum retirement benefits equivalent to the low income threshold after taxes, that it convert all non-refundable tax credits available into refundable tax credits to benefit older women, that it adopt measures to combat financial fraud, particularly on social media, that it support educational programs on retirement protection plans and on recognizing financial fraud, that it invest in the establishment of shelters and housing for women, particularly for older women experiencing homelessness. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Now to the next witness. It is the Canadian Centre for Women's Empowerment. Please go ahead for 5 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon, the member of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Status of Women. Thank you so much for the invitation to appear today. My name is Mesrat Haile Jesus. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Centre for Women Empowerment, CCFW. CCFW is the only national non-for-profit organization in Canada dedicated only addressing economic abuse and injustice through research, education, financial empowerment, and policy influencing. We define economic abuse as a range of behavior used to control someone's economic resource or freedom, including denying access to money, exerting control over resource, or using intimidation to constrain financial autonomy. The vulnerability of senior women to economic abuse is critical, yet often overlooked dimension of elder abuse in Canada. In fact, financial abuse is the most common form of elder abuse in our country. Senior women are uniquely positioned at the intersection of various risks. In 2022, there was 26.2% gap in median income between men and women aged 65 and older. Older women represent 58% of victims in police-reported family violence cases. Furthermore, women between the age of 50 to 69 face a higher dollar loss in report of fraud. Factors such as long-standing financial dependency, social isolation, ageism, the stigma associated with disclosing abuse often present to these women from seeking help. For many senior survivors, financial dependence is not a new occurrence, but a result of a lifetime employment sabotage, caregiving responsibility, or being prevented from pursuing education. Economic abuse may not only found out during the time when a woman may be ready to retire, finding that this is no longer a possibility and forcing her to remain in workforce. Ageism further compounds this by excluding them from the job market or by justifying the removal of their financial autonomy under the false assumption that they are no longer capable in managing their own affairs. For a woman whose retirement fund have been tempered, with who now must work, they face the difficulties of being denied access to workforce that's essential for their livelihood. When senior women lack financial resource, they are often forced to remain unsafe housing or abusive relationship because they simply cannot afford to live. They are many women and feel obligated to remain in a relationship as they may be caregiver to a person causing the abuser or other member of their family. As was flagged as an area of consideration in our study, we know that while the federal income support are intended to provide stability, they can and are being exploited. Programs like Canada Pension Plan, CPP, Old Age Security, OS, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement, GIS, are frequently intercepted by people causing harm. This occurs through various means, including coerced account sharing, redirect deposits, and misuse of power of attorney. Additionally, as the banking moves further into digital realm, senior women face increased risk of technology-facilitated economic abuse, including romance, fraud, sophisticated phishing scheme, and that are increase the vulnerability of people who don't have long digital literacy. We must recognize that senior women, they don't all face the same experience. Older racialized immigrant women are most likely among the seniors women who live in poverty. Language barrier, isolation, lack of familiarity with the Canadian system makes women from Black, newcomers, First Nations, Métis, Inuit community even more vulnerable in sustained economic control and exploitation. To address this gap, the Canadian Centre for Women Empowerment urged immediate federal action in 3 critical areas. First, strengthen the national response. All findings related to seniors, women, economic abuse must be explicitly reflected in the forthcoming Code of Conduct on Prevention of Economic Abuse. This cannot be treated as a side issue. This must form part of coordinated federal strategy that respond both interpersonal economic abuse and the growing threat of external financial scam targeting all women. Second, protect federal income program now. Service Canada must implement standardized and proactive safeguards to detect suspicious activity, including sudden change of direct deposit information, unusual withdrawal, and sign of coercion. This is an urgent need for emergency override mechanism so survivors can quickly regain access to their benefit. Third, commit sustainable funding in budget 2026. Canada cannot address this crisis without long-term investment. Budget 2026 must provide sustainable funding for organizations working to prevent and respond to economic abuse. That fund must be intersectional, equitable, intentional, directed toward Black, racialized newcomer community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My apologies, you're out of your time, but hopefully you can bring that up during the questioning. So next we are going to move on to Mr. Vishal Khanna. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to appear at the Standing Committee on the Status of Women. I feel sad today that I've been given an opportunity to talk about motherhood, who is the generation, cause for today's natures and the whole humanity to sustain and live. It's sad to really talk about it today. My name is Vishal Khanna. I'm the co-founder director of one of the largest independent food banks who started culturally, medically appropriate groceries being delivered to seniors across Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. We, as of today, do over 60,000 people a month. And today, the testimony of based on frontline experiencing serving vulnerable population across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, particularly senior women. The submission reflects our observations findings, recommendations, and regarding financial vulnerability, abuse, food insecurity, healthcare access, and social isolation among senior women in Canada. Community level observations, number one. For our daily work, we are seeing a clear and growing shift where our senior women, our mothers, are increasingly accessing food banks for the first time, struggling with rent, food, healthcare, and medication cost, living alone with limited family or social support, experiencing emotional distress and isolation. What was one of the months of occasional support has now become a long-term reliance on community service reflecting deeper system pressure. Financial vulnerability and poverty. According to the Government of Canada, over 10% of Canadians, approximately 4 million, live in poverty. Our seniors are part of it in a huge number, and which is growing day by day. Senior women remain disproportionately affected due to the fixed income, longer life expectancy, and rising cost of living. Even small financial shocks, such as rent increase or medical expenses, can quickly lead to crisis situation. Food insecurity. Food insecurity continues to rise significantly in Canada. Approximately 10 to 12% of senior households experiencing food insecurity source. Statistics Canada. Women-led households are most likely experiencing food insecurity than male-led households. In practice, senior women often reduce meal or nutrition intake to manage housing and healthcare costs. Number 4, healthcare access, wait times, and the system pressure. A major and growing concern is delayed access to healthcare services. Across Canada, current evidence shows significant delays. The median wait time from a general practitioner referral to a treatment is approximately 28.6 weeks. In Ontario, total wait time is about 19.2 weeks on average, still including both specialist consultations and treatment delays. Diagnostic, imaging delays remain significantly. An MRI can take up to 18 weeks, a CT scan from 8 to 9 weeks. Mental health and therapy wait times. Adult mental health waits are average over 103 days. Child, youth mental health and waits average is 62 days. What is the means in reality? We are observing seniors waiting months for specialist care. Delays in diagnostic, imaging, and follow-ups. Long waits for physiotherapy, rehabilitation, and geriatric care. Significant delays in mental health counseling and therapy access. These delays often result in worsening chronic illness, increased emergency room visits, reduced mobility and independence, greater emotional and financial stress. For senior women, these delays compound existing vulnerabilities, abuse, financial exploitation, and isolation. Financial abuse remains one of the most common and unreported forms of elder abuse in Canada. Risks include scams and fraud targeting seniors, financial exploitation and trusted relationships, limited awareness of reporting system. At the same time, social isolation is widespread. Many senior women live alone, have limited mobility, experiencing loneliness and depression, lack access to mental health and support. For many, the community organizations become their only consistent source of connection and support. Demographic pressure, future outlook. Canada is facing a major demographic shift. By 2030, we're expecting to represent 20 to 21% of total population. This is significantly increased pressure on healthcare systems, income security programs, housing supply, community and social services. This makes early intervention and system for reform urgent. Key findings, based on frontline experience and national data, financial vulnerability among senior women is increasing due to cost of living pressures. Food insecurity is becoming chronic rather than temporary. Healthcare wait times are significantly impacting seniors' well-being. Mental health and therapy delays worsen outcomes. Financial abuse is underreported and often.
Sir, you are but a minute over your time. If you can address the rest of your remarks through the questions that will be coming to you. So moving to our questions, we'll go to Ms. Cody for 6 minutes. Please go ahead, Ms. Cody.
Thank you, Chair, through you, and I want to say thank you to all the witnesses for coming here today. I'd like to focus on the structural differences between single seniors and senior couples. So I'll address my question to, correct me if I'm wrong, Lise Courteau. I want to know if our current system adequately reflects the higher per person costs and risks faced by those aging alone, particularly women, because stats show that they live longer. A senior couple can have substantially higher combined income before triggering the OAS clawback compared to a single senior living alone. Given that senior couples can share pensions where a single senior cannot, would applying a lower threshold create further hardships and a disadvantage to the single senior for covering all the same costs of living? Courteau?
Lise?
Je vais répondre pour moi.
I'll answer for Ms. Courteau. I'm Hélène Cornelier. I'd like for you to repeat your question because it wasn't clear to me.
Vous voulez voir la différence entre
You'd like to know the difference between couples and singles?
The difference between couples, senior couples versus single seniors, because senior couples can share pensions, whereas single senior cannot. And I was wondering if anyone were to apply a lower threshold, like for the clawbacks on pensions, if that would create further hardships and a disadvantage to the single senior for covering all the same costs of living.
Il est certain que pour
For a single person who has to pay rent alone, pay for food, electricity, and all of the other bills, that person can't divide bills in two with a spouse. So there are higher costs. And as we've said, in many cases, women have lower incomes than men. So I won't make a distinction. You could, if it was two women living together, or a man or a woman, I wouldn't be able to make that type of comparison. But let's say in the traditional model, where you have a heterosexual couple and the man earned more money, there should be more costs shared in the household, which helps the woman pay her share but not have her income used up too much. But for our association, it's important that even for women who are part of a couple, that the measures, budgetary measures for retirement, they should be individual and not for families, because often it penalizes women when they are poorer. They lose part of their income. If you think of the guaranteed income supplement, if there's a couple, there would be a loss. Wait a second, I can tell you the amount. I have it here. A loss of about, I'm not finding it, but it's about $400 a month, rather than receiving about $1,000 a month. The person would receive about $600 because there's a spouse. So to us, it's important that the measures.
Some more questions.
Wait.
If I could direct my question now to Mesere Helias. if I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Many Canadians are nearing retirement age and are realizing that the amounts they've been able to save are no longer sufficient to get by with the inflated cost of living we see today. For those nearing retirement and who have little time to boost retirement investments, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like? And will there be a further increase to financial vulnerability of seniors if we don't make changes?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I may not answer the full ask, but one of the barriers what we have seen right now is even though the current support, either CPP or OAS or GIC is available, the biggest barrier is access to their own financial resource. That's a huge barrier. That's what my organization stands for. We're not working on the other aspect of livelihood with the seniors. But what I would suggest is we'll continue asking, of course, demanding the government, making sure that financial institutions are safe for these people. That's the most important thing I would like to say at this time.
Okay, and I'd like to ask you one more question quickly here. I was currently in Thunder Bay and spoke to a police chief there, and he told me that elder abuse is now ranking third in crimes of abuse, next to intimate partner violence and child exploitation. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to this and add to how we could protect seniors.
Yeah, so economic and financial abuse.
My sincerest apologies. That really concludes your time. Meseret, if it's possible, can you perhaps provide written submissions with an answer? I think that's who you were directing the question at. Thank you very, very much. Moving on to Mr. Chen. Please go ahead. You've got 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to all our witnesses today for coming to speak on this very important topic. I would like to begin by asking Ms. Meseret Isis to if she would like to, in fact, complete sharing with us her third recommendation. I believe she started talking about long-term investment in funding for organizations, but ran out of time. So you have the floor.
Yeah, so we demand the federal government, of course, budget 2026 to specifically focus on economic abuse services, which includes cultural responsible support for underserviced population, including training on preventing and responding of economic abuse, public education and fraud prevention. We know that on federal budget 2025, economic abuse mentioned 17 times. We're very grateful for that. And now the Canadian government and Finance Canada is also mobilizing many organizations to address economic and financial abuse. But this investment, it must be continuous. It must be sustainable. We are now in the initial stage, so that's what we are demanding right now.
Thank you very much. You also talked about the particular challenges that are faced by immigrant, Indigenous, and racialized women seniors. You mentioned the need, as you spoke just now, about long-term investment for organizations doing work on the ground, as well as protecting federal income support programs. What specific recommendations do you have for the government to ensure that all women, including those who have different lived experiences, can be supported and ensure that their challenges, unique challenges, are also uniquely addressed?
Yeah, so I would like to recommend again investment on survivor-led initiative, because survivors are a story. Survivors have a passion, and survivors have also understanding of, and lived experience to change some policy. I think that's the most important thing. And then the other investment is we need to continue investing on, data. Data is very important. Canada is one of the countries lack data on financial and economic abuse. I think investment or research is very important. And then the other thing is we need to see also equitable and intersectional engagement in public policy. So women who looks like me, I'm also a survivor, must be included in such kind of conversation. I think that's the most important thing we need to include. And then the other thing is also we need to include and then expand our digital literacy and financial literacy. This is very, very important, especially for newcomers, immigrants in this country. So I think this is my recommendation in order to engage survivors and also to make a change.
Turning to another issue, economic abuse is often linked to coercive control. From your experience, how important is legislation like Bill C-16, which strengthens responses to coercive control and intimate partner violence in recognizing financial abuse as a serious form of violence?
Yeah, as we know, abuser best friend is isolation and power. Power is which is money. So this is a tactic most abuser they use to cripple down women in many ways. So yeah, we really would love to see the criminalization and the support of coercive control, but we want to also make sure that our justice system is in place for Black and Indigenous survivors, as you know, because there is a number of gaps and there is a number of issues on our justice system. So I think that's the most important thing, addressing both coercive control and economic abuse. It really helps for addressing gender-based violence in this country.
Thank you. Turning to Mr. Vishal Khanna, and the work you do at the food bank, I'm sure has provided you with insight on this issue. From your perspective, how important are federal investments like supports for shelters, housing, family literacy programs, and income supports like OAS and GIS in helping women experiencing economic abuse safely leave harmful situations they might find? And have you come across any situations that you would like to provide some insight on?
Mr. Sean, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. As I said before, we have to go a little more deeper and away from just not this. Where does it start? Where does it begin? Everything. It begins from experiencing emotional distress and isolations. Is where majorly the women break down onto it. When they have nothing to talk about, it makes a difference. And if we have something combined where health services, a combined shelters, and area education can be brought to them, it will help them a lot. But we also have to see, is there any way where the isolation could be fought, medical services could be fought, and emotional distress, a weakness to any woman, to any mother is emotions. A fraudulent people can only come forward when they find that vacuum of being able to get into somebody, break that emotional breakdown. It's easy. So as you recommended, that will be a huge help to educate them, guide them, and provide a special number like we have. It started 811. Can we have something for women to reconfirm a number just for them to find some solutions on our mothers who are fighting all that? Thank you.
And that concludes your time, Mr. Chen. Thank you very much. Moving on to Madame Larouche pour 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I thank my colleague Anna Roberts for this study that I supported gladly. In the past, before I was elected, I was responsible for a program. Oh, perhaps it's you too. I mixed you up because with Anna we talked a lot about seniors. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's you. Thank you. I thank you. Ms. Roberts talked a lot about this. So thank you for having brought this study forward. Before I was elected, I worked on the issues of abuse and isolation of seniors. That's what I did on a daily basis. I spoke to police officers, firefighters, people at city halls, at banks, to raise awareness of abuse. And on June 15th, it's the day of awareness of abuse of seniors. So on June 15th, I invite people to wear a purple ribbon. But before June 15th, last Tuesday, April 7th, if I recall correctly, it's also a very important day for the association that's with us today. There have been decades of fights to recognize invisible work. Unfortunately, there's still not an official day as requested by the Association of Feminist Education and Social Action to recognize invisible work, a national day where collectively it wouldn't just be a date on the calendar. It would be a day where we would reflect on what measures we can put in place. Because in your opening statement, Ms. Courteau, you or Ms. Cornelier could respond. You gave as a second factor this element of invisible work. In 2026, why is there still not a day for invisible labor, which would be in April? What could it change? I must recognize that this day, which was created in 2001 by our association, the first Tuesday in April, over all these years, despite a motion that was put forward in 2010 by Nicole Demers, a Bloc member who has now passed away, there was a unanimous motion to recognize that day, but there was no follow-up. We know that motions can pass, but not necessarily go any further. We've continued the work since that time, 26 years of the campaign, and we're asking Quebec and Canada to create this national day to reflect on what it is, unpaid and invisible work, so that national surveys on time can take it into account correctly, so that there are measures to recognize that contribution to society. Having children or being a caregiver is not just a private matter. It's also a social matter. If there were no children, society wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here today. If we don't take care of our family members, what will happen? Healthcare systems are not able to take care of people like women and community organizations do. So all of that work must be recognized and compensated in a certain way, whether through transferring years outside the labor market to have them be compensated through retirement revenue, retirement income, or other similar measures. So despite all of our requests to the different ministers in Quebec and Canada, status of women ministers, our request to create that day, we haven't had a response to date. I can confirm that I know there are measures you want to put in place soon so that there will be pressure on the federal government. I will help you. And I'd like to thank the people I worked with in Grand Bay. I had a lunch with them on Tuesday. That's how I recognize the day for invisible labor. Now, another topic. In your opening statement, you said that lower retirement income, and to date there hasn't been an increase for women, senior women, between 65 and 74 years of age. The Bloc has tabled a new bill so that women 65 to 74 would have the same amount as women 75 and over. Why is there that discrimination, and what does it mean for seniors? Well, when it was adopted under Mr. Trudeau's government, we said, if I recall correctly, that seniors 75 years and over had more expenses than seniors of age 65 to 74, and in general didn't work anymore. Whereas between 65 and 74 years of age, some seniors are still working, which is rarely the case for women, which is what we see in the literature. But that argument is not a real one. When we read, and from what I've heard today from the other panelists, women age 65 to 74, like those age 75 to 100, let's say. There's somebody who's 106 in Quebec now. Women have a hard time managing, and that 10%, it's not a huge amount, but it would help those women. And it would prevent discrimination between retirees, because in any case, that 10% would go to men as well as women aged 65 to 74. Our association supported the bill for C319, and if it's tabled again, we will table the next bill as well. It has been tabled. It's C261, and I apologize again to my colleague, Ms. Cody. Thank you very much.
Going to Ms. Roberts for 5 minutes. Please go ahead, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My questions will be addressed to Mr. Vishal Khanna. So first of all, it's so nice to see you again. Your mission statement for your food bank, I love it. And I want the committee to know what it is. And it's your quote, "No one should go to bed hungry." What an amazing idea. I would like to first say thank you to you and to the SciDam team for your commitment and dedication to our community. I've had the pleasure of visiting your food bank several times over the years. I would like to share with the committee your program you have implemented for our seniors. Seniors can order their preferred meals for delivery through your program for our seniors who are unable to drive to your location. I believe this benefit is a fantastic choice for our seniors. Thank you for this program. I also understand that since inception, you have provided support for more than 3,625 seniors across the GTA and the GTHA. Your program supports 26 cities. As of March 2025, nearly 2.2 million visits to food banks in Canada, the highest number in history. It is shocking to hear from so many seniors every day who have worked hard to support their families, build this country, and now are being forced to rely on the wonderful organization like yours to be able to feed themselves. Would you say that the current supports from the government are failing to ensure seniors in this country can live in dignity?
Madam Roberts, thank you so much for that question, and thank you for always putting a light on what we do. Thank you. Yes, we came up with part of it that nobody should go to bed hungry, and we brought up another one recently, is that no child should come to school hungry. The two things we just started have to go on. And looking at today's scenario and the way we are getting calls and anticipating on new seniors adding to the pipeline of delivering, I think there is a huge issue and gaps. Not only talk about services or seniors living, I think that the focus why I really highly talk about is that aging at home concept is not more important. What seniors today need more services of where their experiences and isolation can be taken care of. Somewhere their health services can be handled better than what they have to go through today. Somewhere they have more opportunities to interact and live happy. Who have lost their partners today, it is very, very difficult for them to live. They find new ways to connect and talk, but it is very painful. And the services they have today, the support they have today, it's not sufficient for them to live. And especially when culturally and medical needs are very different. Medical conditions put them in such a situation that they only have to have organic, whole foods, items like that. It is very hard for them to sustain.
So I'm gonna present something to you, Mr. Khan, and that is if we look at a couple of husband and wife senior or partners earning $50,000, and we look at a single senior earning $50,000. I will tell you, because of income splitting, the couple pay in taxes $1,172, where the single senior pays $6,521 in taxes. So would you agree with me that even seniors that are going back to work so that they can sustain the opportunity of living in dignity, that's not currently happening? 19% of food bank clients report employment as their main source of income compared to 12% in 2019. This year, the cumulative impact of inflation has further eroded the purchasing power of people who are employed. What recommendations do you have for this government to assist senior Canadians who built this country, that living expenses are out of control and that they deserve better during their retirement years?
You have 15 seconds to answer that question. If not, you can provide it to us in writing.
Just one short thing. That is, affordability had made difficult for the people to sustain in Canada today. Seniors are no part of that. Can we make affordability more easier for people to have buy daily groceries will help. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great, Mr. Khanna. You're awesome. All right, moving on to Mr. Lewis for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
It's okay. I'm good now. Thank you. You pulled a switch on the order, so that's the confusion. I'm pleased that we're undertaking this study on abuse and financial vulnerability of senior women because, as we hear, inequality doesn't disappear with age. For many women, it actually compounds, and we're hearing that senior women are more likely to live alone, more likely to rely on fixed incomes, more likely to experience poverty. These outcomes reflect a lifetime of lower earnings, unpaid caregiving in many cases, pension gaps, and systematic gender inequality. And unfortunately, we're also seeing the growing risks of financial abuse through scams, through coercive control, and through the misuse of financial authority, unfortunately, sometimes by those closest to them. And these risks are heightened, as we're hearing, by isolation, by housing insecurity, and barriers such as language disability or limited digital literacy. So I'm happy that I get to be part of a study that gives us an opportunity to examine how we can ensure that senior women can age with independence, with financial security, and with dignity. I really appreciate the input from everyone. This is very important. Maybe I would start with Ms. Courteau. I hear from seniors in my community that a lot of times as people are aging, especially senior women, they want to stay in their community, particular smaller communities. And many times their families have moved away, but they still don't want to move, let's say, with a daughter or a daughter-in-law somewhere else. They want to age at home in their communities. So I know how important it is to have a housing strategy for seniors to be able to stay. We've got a national housing strategy. We're working to increase access to safe and affordable housing. Programs like the Rapid Housing Initiative or Housing Accelerator Fund. How important is it to help seniors age safely and independent in their communities? Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Courteau. Sorry, I thought the translation was catching up. Désolé.
Je vais répondre pour...
I will answer for our association. I think it's essential that we support seniors. We saw the damage that the pandemic did for seniors, whether they were in retirement homes, in nursing homes here in Quebec, or at home. The isolation that it caused had consequences that are still felt today, that these people are experiencing. They're more withdrawn from society, especially if these people were a little bit solitary and didn't have much of a network. If we don't make available to seniors adequate housing for them to remain in their communities, because in Quebec, we talk a lot about people who are in retirement homes or nursing homes, but the majority of seniors are at home. So if we don't have measures to support them in their own homes, whether through healthcare services, community services, city services, we wouldn't be helping those people. We wouldn't help their quality of life, which can lead to more hospitalizations and premature deaths, which is not what we want. We want seniors and our families to be healthy for as long as possible. And we see when a senior is surrounded by people who are supportive, not necessarily by living with family, but family helps or services, that person stays healthy for longer, lives longer, and participates in society. Because many seniors do volunteer work, they help their neighbors when they are needed, they help their children and grandchildren when needed. So it's a whole part of society that we're not helping, and they're suffering bit by bit.
That's such a thorough answer. I don't have time for more, but I do want to say thank you. And also thank you to everyone in the services you do and throughout our communities. The many not-for-profits and the services that are taking care of our seniors are really the heartbeat of that. And also so many families who are helping with aging parents. It wouldn't happen without all of them. So anyone listening, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
That was literally right on the dot, Mr. Lewis. You are phenomenal. I appreciate that. And our last questioner for this round is going to be Madame Larouche for 2 minutes and a half.
Merci. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the witnesses for joining us today. Hello to and thank you to Ms. Heliasis and Mr. Canna. More and more seniors have to ask for help with food, and I know all of the work you do to empower women. Ms. Heliasis, we've met before. For my last turn, I'll speak to the association again. Senior women have income that's about 30% lower than men. Is that precarity the main cause of vulnerability, or is it also that women are twice as much at risk of poverty? So once again, would increasing old age security be essential? And one senior in 5 needs help with housing. The housing crisis increases women's vulnerability. Does that precarity also lead to hidden homelessness? You mentioned this in your opening remarks, but I'd like to hear more. Regarding income, the lack of pay equity in Quebec and throughout Canada means that current senior women, don't have the retirement benefits that would be equivalent to that of men. So they have a major loss there. In addition, when they leave the workforce to help their families, when a child is born, to help a child who has particular difficulties, a child with a disability, for example, or to take care of a family member, a spouse or parents. When that happens, when they leave the workforce, they lose their salary, but also they often miss out on promotions, and that has an impact on their retirement. So their retirement income is lower for many women. I wouldn't say all women, but that trend is slowing, but it continues. And we see more and more women who have to leave their home because they are evicted, but because rent becomes too high. It could be 55% of their income. In some cases, I've read, it was 80% of income. So they're no longer able to pay their rent. They find themselves out on the street. And women have more hidden homelessness. There are women who are on the street and it's visible, which is very dangerous for them. They go to shelters, but even in Montreal, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 for women. It's not enough. I don't know what it's like in Toronto or other cities in Canada. And so that hidden homelessness means that they would live with their daughter or their son for some time and then go to a friend because they can't stay there permanently. So they no longer have an address. And that's a major problem.
Very much. That concludes our time for the first hour. Je vous remercie pour votre...
Thank you for your participation.
I thank you for your participation today. And if there is anything additional that you would like to say based on questions that you've heard, I encourage you all to please write your answers in. And anything additional that you would like to add that you were not able to talk about today into the committee, you have the clerk's email address. Thank you again, and we'll suspend briefly as we move
Madam
on.
Chair, I believe Mr. Khan has his hand up.
Mr. Khanna, did you want to say something? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I won't take much time, Madam Chair. I just feel for our mothers, the discussion is not worth it. Our mothers should be paid some different respect and dignities of places just for them to live, care, not as a woman, thinking as a mother. if we can do something, special shelters, special cares, special support, it'll be wonderful to have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that addition, Mr. Khanna. It was very valuable. Thank you. So I'll suspend briefly as we move witnesses. Thank you again for your participation. We are back and good for another hour of amazing testimony from witnesses. In this hour, we have Barbara Schleifer, Commemorative Clinic, represented by Jihan Chaudhry. And we also have the National Association of Federal Retirees, represented by Giselle Tassé Goodman, as well as Amy Baldry, who may be answering some questions as well today. And we are also joined today by the National Institute on Aging, represented by Talia Bronstein. Thank you, witnesses, for being here. You will each have 5 minutes for your opening remarks, starting with Ms. Schleifer, if you can, please. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Ms. Chowdhury. You are on mute. There we go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for the invitation to appear today. My name is Jehan Chowdhury. I'm the Acting Executive Director at the Barbara Schleifer Clinic, and I am appearing on behalf of the clinic. The clinic is a community-based organization that supports women and gender-diverse people who have experienced violence, including intimate partner abuse, financial abuse, coercive control, and exploitation. We provide trauma-informed legal services, counseling, interpretation, and community education. And we work with survivors across the lifespan, including a growing number of senior women. The women we serve are diverse. Many are racialized, immigrant or refugee women, women with disabilities, women living on fixed or precarious incomes, and women for whom English or French is not a first language. These intersecting identities significantly shape both the abuse they experience and the barriers they face in accessing safely income and support. What we're sharing today is grounded in frontline practice and wage-funded programming, and in what senior women themselves tell us about the barriers. Abuse and financial vulnerability for senior women. For many senior women, abuse does not end with age. It becomes more hidden and more complex. Financial abuse is one of the most common and least recognized form of harm we see. It includes control over income or benefits, forced debt, pressure to sign financial or legal documents, exploitation by partners, family members, or caregivers. For racialized senior women with disabilities and immigrant seniors, these harms are often compounded by language barriers, dependent on others for caregiving, transportation, and interpretation, mistrust of institution due to past discrimination, fear of jeopardizing housing, immigrant status, or family relationships. These realities intersect with fixed incomes, rising cost of living, health needs, and social isolation, deepening financial vulnerability. Through our financial empowerment workshop series, senior women consistently tell us that income insecurity increases intense emotional stress, financial instability interferes with healing and safety planning, navigating federal and provincial benefit systems while recovering from abuse is overwhelming, particularly for women with disability and limited digital access. At the same time, we see powerful outcomes when financial education is trauma-informed, culturally responsive, and delivered in the community. 94% of our participants reported feeling less isolated. 88% reported improved emotional well-being. For many racialized and immigrant senior women, language accessible and peer support spaces are often the first place they feel safe about speaking on financial issues and shy away from shame. The key in this is income supports must be paired with trauma-informed financial education and opportunities for connection, not delivered in isolation. So in our groups, we also found that employment is the first intervention for survivors, what survivors need. Only a small number of senior women engage with us because they are seeking employment. The vast majority prioritize safety, stable and predictable income, managing basic living cost, emotional healing, and social reconnection. This is especially true for women with disability or chronic health conditions and for women who spend years economically marginalized due to caregiving, migration, or abuse. For disabled and racialized seniors, these risks are heightened by accessibility barriers, racism, limited transportation options, Participants consistently identify the community aspect of our programming as one of the most important supports in their recovery. So this raises a crucial policy question: how can federal funding better support safe, accessible community spaces and long-term partnership with trusted, culturally specific, and disability inclusive organizations? Scams and frauds are a serious and ongoing threat to senior women, particularly those who have experienced abuse. Survivors are often targeted because of financial insecurity, isolation, reduced confidence after years of coercive control. In
My
conclusion,
apologies, Ms. Chaudhry, you're out of time. Hopefully you can address the rest of your comments through the questions. We'll now move on to Ms. Taze Goodman for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to speak today. My name is Gisèle Tassé-Goodman. I'm the chair of the National Association of Federal Retirees. I'm joined by Amy Baldry. Our association is the largest national advocacy association representing active and retired members of the Federal Public Service, Canadian Armed Forces, RCMP, and retired federally appointed judges, as well as their partners and survivors. The association advocates for improvement to the financial security, health, and well-being of our members and all Canadians. When considering the financial vulnerability of older women in Canada, we must examine retirement income security and the persistent gender inequity that exists. Nationally, the gender pay gap has remained unchanged since the 1970s. In 2020, 1 in 5 women aged 75 and over lived below the low-income cutoff, dramatically higher than men. We also see broader gender gaps in pensions among former public servants. Access to workplace retirement plans is another barrier. Within the public sector, 90% of women have access to a pension plan, while only 44% do in the private sector. Retirement income gap can stem from several factors like lower lifetime earnings, part-time work, career interruptions for caregiving, and more. These all lead to lower contributions to retirement savings. Polling of our members showed women were significantly more likely to be very concerned about the rising cost of living during retirement than their male peers. While a new study from the Life Research Institute, University of Ottawa, in collaboration with our association, shows 43% of solo women retirees struggle to afford the basics of life, with nearly 1 in 4 unable to afford food, rent, transportation in the last 6 months. Racialized women are excessively impacted by these disparities. Retirement income inequities create barriers to health, dignity, and security. These challenges have only been amplified by recent affordability challenges and inflationary pressures. The 2025 National Institute on Aging in Canada survey found among those needing home care, fewer than half of the women surveyed were able to consistently get the care they needed, far below their male peers. It also found that income impact opportunities to connect. Those with inadequate incomes reported the biggest barriers to joining social and communal activities. Policies and funding to support aging and healthy, active, and financially secure retirements are crucial as Canada moves forward. Addressing financial vulnerability of older women means addressing economic and social conditions throughout the life course to close the gaps in retirement security. This includes protection income security by safeguarding and improving government-sponsored programs like OAS, GIS, CPP, and QPP. It also requires fostering innovative pension solutions and improving access to workplace pension plans to give more Canadians reliable pension options. It involves addressing access and affordability barrier in inequity in healthcare, public transit, and housing that undermines safety, inclusion, and independence. Above all, it requires a whole-of-government approach, something that is achieved with a careful, developed, comprehensive long-term plan to ensure quality of life in retirement and a positive and healthy aging experience for all Canadians. As this country prepares for rapid change in demographics and a significant increase in the number of older Canadians, ensuring that all Canadians can age with dignity, health, and financial security must be a priority and designed with equity in mind. Thank you. We welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tassé-Goodman. Now moving on to Ms. Bronstein for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for this opportunity. I'm the Director of Policy of the National Institute on Aging, a research and policy institute housed at Toronto Metropolitan University. For the past 10 years, we have worked to build a Canada where older adults feel valued, included, supported, and better prepared to age with confidence. Due to longer life expectancies, there are 600,000 more women aged 50 and older living in Canada today than men. Despite this, inequalities remain. Today, I will share findings from the National Institute on Aging's 2025 Aging in Canada survey, reflecting 6,000 responses from individuals 50 and older living across the country. In partnership with the International Longevity Centre Canada and with funding from Women and Gender Equality Canada, we've analysed this data to understand the gender dimensions of aging. The findings are stark. 24% of older women report inadequate income compared to 19% of older men. Only 1/4 of older women indicated they could afford to retire compared to 1/3 of older men. They were also much more likely to have only $5,000 or less saved for retirement. These financial vulnerabilities do not happen in a vacuum. Women face a cumulative economic disadvantage over their lifespans, stemming from gender pay gaps, career interruptions for caregiving, and a higher likelihood of part-time work, which can translate into lower lifelong earnings and reduced retirement savings. Due to life events such as widowhood, women are twice as likely to live alone than men. Social isolation, which refers to the breadth of social connections one has, and loneliness, which refers to the feeling of being disconnected, are associated with higher rates of mental health challenges, chronic disease, even premature mortality. Financial vulnerability compounds this risk. Our data shows that 53% of older women with inadequate income reported experiencing social isolation, compared to 37% among women with adequate income. Social isolation and loneliness also increase the risk of abuse. Socially isolated older adults have fewer opportunities to seek help or disclose concerns, while older women may also hesitate to report abuse because of fear of retaliation, emotional attachment, or concern about losing essential caregiver support. Economic abuse often arises within dependency relationships and can deprive older adults of financial autonomy, including over their finances, diminished independence, and access to essential supports. In the situation of coercive control, perpetrators often employ isolation tactics to increase the victim's financial, emotional, and physical dependence. Together, these factors compound vulnerability, increasing both financial security, the risk of abuse, and also making it more difficult to seek support or exit harmful situations. There are a number of steps the federal government can take to address these challenges. The first is to prevent financial vulnerability for older women. We have one potential solution. Fewer Canadians have employer pension plans, causing a greater reliance on systems like Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security. People can claim their CPP as early as 60, increasing their lifelong benefits for every month that they delay. However, the vast majority claim by age 65. Our modeling shows that low to middle income households could actually afford to delay their CPP to increase their lifetime retirement income by about $100,000 for the average Canadian. But our research shows the biggest barrier is actually the fear of missing out if they die early. We have a proposal called the Pension Delay Guarantee that would combat this by reimbursing the estate, in the case of an early death, the difference between the CPP benefits actually received and what would have been received had the benefits been claimed at age 60. This could be financed within the existing CPP structure without raising contribution rates and would not cost taxpayers. Now, I bring this forward because women are the ones who stand to benefit the most from this change. They are most likely to live longer and have fewer personal savings, and therefore more likely to benefit from those longer lifelong earnings from CPP, and they are more likely to be the beneficiaries in the case of a death of a spouse. With a CPP triennial review currently underway, we have a critical window to act. The government is also considering two important initiatives, including the Code of Conduct for the Prevention of Economic Abuse. In our submission to that, we recommended training, early identification tools, and protective mechanisms be embedded within a binding framework for financial institutions. The Justice Committee is also currently considering Bill C-16, which would create a criminal offense covering coercive control, a move we fully support, but we recommend broadening the scope of this bill beyond intimate partners to include relatives and informal caregivers, who are often the perpetrators of coercive control in the context of older adults. Finally, I will just conclude by saying, similarly, we need a national comprehensive strategy to address the needs of older adults, specifically women in Canada, and so a national senior strategy would go a long way to address these intersecting challenges. So thank you very much for studying this important issue.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bronstein. I appreciate that. We'll go into our first round of questions. Ms. Cody, for 6 minutes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Thank you, witnesses, for coming here today. It's a very important thing to discuss. And all you witnesses have mentioned so much about what we're looking into and offering a lot of content, which is really great. My question is for Ms. Chaudry. We see that senior scams are on the rise, and senior women are more prone to falling victim to these financial scams. And I was wondering about how can we bring awareness to this issue amongst seniors to reduce these scams and financial coercion that seems to be happening on a frequent basis?
Thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier on, the information that I have provided is from the work that we're doing right now. We have we got funding from WAGE to do some kind of education, like workshops for senior women, specifically looking at financial vulnerability. So what we've done is one of the workshops is actually based on scam and how to prevent scam. So we had police officers come in and talk about scams, what kind of scams are happening, and what senior women can do to protect themselves. So I think it's very important to have that kind of education in place, but also for women who don't speak English or French. I think if it's not their first language, we need to have this kind of information in different, translated in different languages, so that it's much more.
And what roles and responsibilities should social media sites and other platforms have when it comes to stopping seniors from being targeted online?
I think it would be the same thing that then we need to talk about. I think this is something people don't talk about often, especially in circles where it is more accessible, like the social media. You will not see people talking about scams for the elderly. You may hear something on the radio now and then, but I agree with you that we could use social media and also other channels, like you have radio stations that deal with different languages and attract different crowds. I think we should ask everybody to become a part of that.
Thank you. I'd like to go on to Ms. Tassé Goodman with a question, if I could. Can you speak to the rising cost of living, housing prices, and inflation over the last 10 years, and how this will impact those nearing retirement with little time to increase their savings over the next 5 to 10 years if cost of living does not become more affordable to them?
If I may, I will answer in French. Current federal supports are effective, but they're inadequate. They're adequate in certain stages, but not all. The Old Age Security Benefit and the Guaranteed Income Supplement are necessary supports, but there's room for improvement. Those measures are for protection, and access to financial support from the government needs to remain available for people age 65 and over. And we must not push back retirement age, because that could have consequences and undermine the personal security of seniors. I can tell you that most Canadians count on their savings, their personal investments over their life, and government programs. Encouraging private sector pension plans of better quality needs to be a priority for the government, because it's to protect income security. That being said, we must also note that retirees who live alone are much more likely to depend on income support from the government. There are statistics on this. They're from a survey we did with the University of Ottawa. It was on financial vulnerability for women retirees. 43.3% of women who live alone have a hard time making ends meet. 23.8% of women who live alone have had a situation of financial precarity at least once in the previous 6 months. So they weren't able to feed themselves well. They weren't able to fully pay their rent or their transportation. And I can tell you,
if I could go on about another topic, I'm running short of time. I was able to speak with police in different jurisdictions, and they're saying that abuse is moving up to, elder abuse is moving up to third in the ranks of crime of abuse, where intimate partner violence is the most common and child exploitation is second. And so I was wondering if you had anything to share, if you've seen evidence to suggest elder abuse is on the rise, and what is the source or the root of the cause?
There are programs that exist to raise awareness, to fight abuse. Our association, the National Association of Federal Retirees, feels that any law should take into account aging Canadians and provide necessary supports. That's part of our understanding of the plan that would be to deal with demographic evolution in Canada. We know that in 2025, Statistics Canada reported that 8.1 million people are seniors in Canada. That is the population of a province, for example. So in plans that will be developed by the government, each department needs to participate. Health Canada, Social Development, Canada Revenue, Veterans, the Anti-Fraud Centre. There's a lot of fraud. It would be good to work together.
Speaker, actually a minute over time right now, but thank you for your contributions. We'll now move on to Ms. Maynard for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to warmly welcome all of the witnesses with us today. Your expertise really help us, and all of the members here are passionate and engaged in this study, which we find very important. Ms. Chaudhry, I'll begin with you, because it's our responsibility to ensure we look at all the angles. Would you have specific things to state regarding the reality of LGBTQ2S plus seniors? So there's the Indigenous lens, the immigrant lens. Are there particularities to this subgroup that the committee should be aware of?
Thank you for your question. So yes, I think the most important thing is that we have any service that we provide, any policy that we look at, they have to come through a trauma-informed lens, because every community will have experienced older abuse. It's their own lived experience. It's not like it's not everybody has the same experience. So it's very, very important, I think, to involve people from those specific communities to be a part of the group or to get, answers from, and also look at every individual community as an individual community and not, that this solution will fit everyone else.
Merci beaucoup, en effet, de nous mettre en...
Thank you very much. We shouldn't look for a one-size-fits-all. Ms. Bronstein, through your work, you receive funding. Can you tell us about the importance of the federal government's contribution in funding research for collecting data, for example? What does it allow you to do?
Thank you for the question. So this was a specific project funded through WAGE, actually through the International Longevity Center that brought us on as a partner. But it certainly allowed us to look at data that we had collected and do a much deeper dive to really understand the gendered dimensions of aging. And as a result, we were able to pull some really interesting insights that I shared today, that women were much more likely to be experiencing financial insecurity. They had barriers in access to home and community care. They had barriers in access to health care. So those experiences are really unique and require, that level of research and analysis to pull them forward.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Tassé-Goodman. Nous avions peut-être...
Thank you very much, Ms. Tassé-Goodman. As a group, we felt that perhaps women who hadn't had a career, who their whole lives had worked without being paid, would be in a more vulnerable situation as they grew older. You've told us that there are also vulnerabilities among those who did have a professional career. Is there a blind spot for that population?
Écoutez, les femmes.
Well, women are disadvantaged in a unique way vis-a-vis men. It's clear women generally have lower income compared to men for a variety of reasons. There are salary disparities, care responsibilities that interrupt their career, and they're more likely to work part-time. There are women, even over age 65, senior women, who are retired and become caregivers for their aging parents, their family members. For some of those women, they left work a little bit earlier to take care of their family members. They cut back on work hours when they were on the labor market, and that would have an impact on their pensions. And so racialized women are especially affected. They earn 47% of the retirement income of men. A survey with our members indicates that women are much more likely to be concerned about the cost of living, and that affects their retirement. So women are concerned at 46% compared to men, 30-some%. And we know that women live longer than men after the age of 65. So their retirement income has to be stretched because they live on average 3 years longer than men. Thank you. That's very informative. Madam Chair, do I have a few seconds left? I'll take that for yes. Ms. Chowdhury, I have another question for you. All of the witnesses to date have talked about the consequences of isolation for senior women. What role do community organizations play in helping senior women?
So I think this is a very good question. As I mentioned earlier on, the group that we're doing right now, 100% of them talked about isolation, like how these are senior older women, they feel isolated. But also 100% said that attending a community group in their communities really helped them because there was a language that was spoken that they understood. They met other people from similar backgrounds that they could connect with, and the community organizations are reachable in terms of transportation. So we have to think of all of those things. So I think that is a really, really important question.
Vous remercier vos...
Thank you. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Madame Larouche pour 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for joining us today for this important study. We see statistics that are concerning. So thank you, Ms. Bronstein, and thank you to Ms. Chaudhry. So now I'll pick up on these questions we've had today. I'll turn to the Association of Federal Retirees, Ms. Tassé-Goodman. We see that there's an income gap of about 30%. That's what we see. Old age security, should it be increased at the age of 65? You even said it in response to a question. What is the age of retirement? Is it 65? Is it 75? Because there was an increase only for those aged 75 and older. So please express your view. So it would be important when retirement happens to support retirees. Thank you for the question. It's a very interesting question. I've appeared before this committee before, I think about 2 years ago, and we're talking about the same recommendation we had made. So the National Association of Federal Retirees feels that income support programs from the government must guarantee that seniors are able to meet their essential needs and live in dignity. Programs must ensure that each aging Canadian does not live in poverty. In August 2021, this government gave $500 to those aged 75 and over. In July 2022, 10% was offered, and it's still there for seniors aged 75 and over. And we firmly believe that that has created two classes of seniors, because the old age security benefit, people can access it at 60 and 65. So seniors wonder, those who live under the poverty line, they wonder, why can I not have access to that 10% which is given to those 75 and over? So there's those who are 65 to 74 are considered, well, not as seniors by the federal government, because that 10% is only to those 75 and older. We would like the government to hear our call, hear the voice of seniors who are asking, and many of them have difficulty making ends meet. So it would be important for the government to look into this and grant that amount to seniors. Because finally, expenses are similar between 65 and 74 to those 75 and up. It can be similar. Would you also say that? Do you feel that that division is unfair? And finally, because at the end of the day, seniors at 65 or 75 need to house themselves. Is housing an important factor? Yes, you're quite right. We all know seniors who have a hard time paying for their groceries. I've met some. I've seen people put food back, and it's disturbing to see that kind of thing. I was with another association for seniors before, and I saw people who were cutting their pills during the month so they would be able to feed themselves. So financial precarity, it doesn't end at a certain age, and creating two classes of seniors hurts people, and people aren't able to live in dignity. You were interrupted at one point because there were many things to say. I'd like to give you some time to continue. You were talking about a survey. So that was at 43%, and I think my colleague had another question. But could you provide some statistics that would be relevant for our study? Okay, so the survey was with our Association of Federal Retirees. It was on financial vulnerability for solo women retirees. 43.3% of solo women struggled to afford the basics of life.
0.8% of solo women experience financial insecurity at least once in the last 6 months. And here's some interesting comments from those women. After my husband died, my household income was reduced by only $10,000, and my tax liability increased by $20,000. There is no money left for the last 2 weeks of the month for food, gas. I struggle to buy food and medication and often go without one or the other. Most of the household expenses stay the same, but now there is only one income to cover these. Et vous savez, ce sont des messages criants, perturbants.
These are upsetting messages. Thank you. So, in terms of solutions, you're talking about solo women to have an incentive for seniors who want to work and to increase their income without being cut for the GIS. That was in our bill that we've tabled again, C-261.
Thank you very much. That concludes your time, Madame Larouche. My apologies. We'll now move on to Ms. Roberts for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. This is desperately an important topic because, as we all know, women, like Ms. Talia Bronstein stated earlier, tend to live longer than men. So my question is to Ms. Bronstein. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. I apologize if I'm not. With single seniors, when their spouse passes, they lose a large portion of the income which was stated earlier. So the tax fairness is different from a couple as opposed to a single senior. How can we adjust that so that single seniors aren't suffering the loss of that income? And as my colleague, Madame LaRouche said earlier, the expenses are not that much different. What suggestions would you have for this government to assist a widowed senior who has lost a spouse and now does not have that same advantage?
Thank you for the question, and you got the pronunciation correct. I
Thank
think the challenge, I think, with our retirement income system is that it's highly complex. It is very individualistic in terms of how someone engages with the retirement income system. It depends on your RSP contributions and your withdrawals and your RIFs and your OAS and when you take OAS and when you take CPP. So it's a highly complex system. And the unfortunate reality is that while we've seen huge progress in in reducing poverty amongst older adults, there is still poverty remaining. And our survey shows that older women were much more likely to experience what we call material deprivation, meaning they're not meeting a basic standard of living. So we know there is a problem to be solved. And as you said, women are more likely to be widowed, to live alone. And so those challenges, affording a house as a single individual versus, or a rental unit even, it's much harder as an individual than as a couple potentially. So my unfortunate answer is I actually think this needs to be looked at in a much more broad context of our retirement income system because these pieces interact in very complex ways. And so we've actually called for a review of the retirement income system and bringing in that equity lens to understand who is benefiting, where are their shortfalls, and how can we address some of those challenges?
So I recently met with a senior who, her and her sister lived together, and they were never married. They were both professionals. They had saved some money, and because of their good health, one senior, one of the sisters is still alive today, but unfortunately, her sister died at a very young age, and she didn't even have the opportunity to collect her CPP. So my question, she asked me the question, what happens to that money that my sister contributed since she was 16 years old, working and paying into CPP? Now she is left with the home that they purchased together. And the bills are still the same, but now she's reduced to one income. And she explained to me that she has no choice but to sell the home and move into an apartment. But here's the dilemma. The rent that she's applied for rental geared to income, and the wait time is 8 years. So the only apartment she could find was a basement apartment where the rent was still $2,000 a month. How do we explain to this particular individual that chose this type of lifestyle that now can't afford even her rent each month?
Housing is a huge help cost to any household. So I think on the housing side, we need to tackle that. That's a whole area that needs work. But on the CPP side, I want to comment on that because in a lot of private pension plans, there is a mechanism that benefits the estate, right? If the individual dies and they've contributed to that pension plan. CPP doesn't have that built in. And that's why we've proposed this pension delay guarantee that would essentially reimburse the estate for benefits that had not been received by that individual in the case of an untimely death. It's a cost-effective mechanism that would greatly improve retirement financial security because it would nudge people to delay their CPP if they can afford it, and it would benefit those estates that have that unexpected untimely death that is thankfully a rare occurrence. So this wouldn't be a huge price tag because there's not that many people that fall into that category. But for those estates, it would cause a lot of comfort knowing that some of those CPP benefits would actually come back to the estate that have been contributed to.
Thank
So
you
I'm gonna
very much. Sorry, Ms. Roberts, that concludes your time. We'll now move on to Mr. Chen for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So today we've heard from a number of witnesses, and thank you all for being here. I've heard a number of people speak about women bearing the brunt of unpaid work, whether that is child caring or having to take time off work for family and other needs. Do you have any solutions that you can propose in which that can be accounted for? Because as has been stated, too often the income supports provided to older women are dependent on their contributions and their earnings previously. So what are some ways that we can account for this unpaid work so that women are not penalized?
Okay. So it's important to note, first of all, that anywhere between 14 to 25% of older adults are caregivers themselves. That burden disproportionately falls on women who contribute more caregiving hours. The National Institute on Aging has endorsed the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence's National Caregiver Strategy, which has a number of excellent recommendations. I think the most important one is addressing the income challenge, which is by and large the number one issue caregivers raise as their challenge. And I think a feasible option that the government could do right now is change the Canada Caregiver tax credit to be a refundable tax credit. That's something that actually was in a mandate letter, so I know it's on the government's radar. So I think it's time to make that change because that would directly benefit caregivers by ensuring that they have that income support.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll turn to Ms. Chowdhury, who spoke earlier about trauma-informed financial education and also programs that are community-driven and delivered. How can the government better support these programs and ensure that they are more widely available, particularly in the context of diverse communities? As you mentioned, racialized women face particular barriers and have experiences of discrimination, all of which add an extra layer of complexity to the challenges that older women faced.
So, I mean, I think there is some organizations like ourselves, like the clinic, that is doing some of this work, which is, doing workshops with older women, for us specifically, with women. And I know here in I'm speaking from Toronto that there's at least 3 organizations that do that. But once the workshop is over, then it's over. I think what needs to be done is to keep that connection after, because even in this the 2 cohorts that we've had, we've seen that women have learned from the workshops, but also created a network amongst themselves. But when then the groups are over, so I think there needs to be more funding available for organizations to carry this through, but also other organizations to do that, and to share what has been learned from what we're doing. For example, we have an evaluation happening after every cohort to see what is happening, what has worked, what hasn't worked. And I think funding is one of the criteria. And I think one of the other things that can be done is reaching out to specific groups, when I'm talking about culturally appropriate, linguistically, reaching out to those groups and finding out what else can be done and working through them to really, because a lot of the women that are in our groups are women that don't speak English language, and those are the ones that are more, feel the isolation more. 30 seconds. So yeah, I mean, I think funding, of course, and also reaching out to organizations that already do the work and learning from that and then expanding from there.
So it sounds like your organization and a number of others are doing good work in this area. Have you reached all the women that need to be reached through your programs, or are there a lot more that have not been supported?
Yes, there is a lot more that would, be find the information very useful. So we could reach out to a lot more.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Now moving on to Madame Larouche for 2.5 minutes, please.
Merci. Thank you, Madam Chair. We've talked about this situation of precariousness for seniors and those who are on a fixed income with old age security, guaranteed income supplement. In relation to something in the news, when there are delays in payments for those who depend on them, when there's a new system like CURM, would that lead to economic instability, add additional stress? Ms. Bronstein or Ms. Tassé-Goodman? When there are delays in the payments of benefits, what can the consequences be?
Alors, les conséquences?
The consequences can be devastating. Not being able to pay rent at the end of the month, the anxiety of being evicted is upsetting. Knowing that you can't afford your groceries, or in our survey with the University of Ottawa, being able to pay groceries for only 2 weeks of the month, that's pretty pathetic. Cutting medication, you can see how it's alarming for some seniors who are not, and I wouldn't say they're not getting what they're due, but what the government programs put in place. So it's important to have a plan for departments to communicate, to take into account the needs of seniors. So it's not minimal to have delays of a few months because the system is changing. It can have serious consequences. Yes, very serious consequences on the health and the physical security as well of people. These are causes of isolation. People don't leave their home because they know they can't afford transportation, food, housing, or even medication. Last question, speaking of precarity, in 30 seconds, based on your institute, we hear that there's a lot more homelessness with seniors. What proportion would be seniors? Could you have some numbers on that?
I don't have the numbers on me, but I can certainly provide that to the committee afterwards. But it's absolutely a growing problem. And it's important to remember shelters are not designed for older adults. They're not designed with physical accessibility in mind in that way. They're not designed to store and dispense medication. So they're not the right environment for older adults. We want to make sure that they have accessible, affordable housing.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Ms. Goodrich. Now, I realize that we have 5 minutes remaining of committee. Ms. Goodrich and Mr. Lewis, you both have 5 minutes. Do you want to divide that by 2, or do we want to extend the meeting by 5 minutes? It's up to you guys.
Unlike all of you guys from Ontario, I actually have to catch a flight, so let's divide it.
Okay, all right. So, Ms. Goodrich, for 2.5 minutes, please go ahead.
Thank you, and I want to thank all the witnesses for being here today. It was really powerful testimony. Ms. Bronstein, you highlighted really briefly in your comments about how you had a proposal of an amendment for C-16. I was wondering if you could provide that to the committee in writing. I think that would be really useful for the context. And then one question I have, and to whichever witness is best suited to answer this, we heard specifically, and I think Ms. Brownstein, you talked quite a bit about the precarity and how so many of these women are in these situations because they didn't have the same earning potential and so their CPP is lower. So what is the impact that the rising inflation is having on these people that are on very limited fixed incomes? Like, what are you seeing on the ground?
When we survey older adults in Canada, again, 6,000 older adults right across every province and territory, the number one concern people have is the cost of living is their number one. And the second one is running out of money. Because as you said, on fixed income, on savings, you're trying to see, how many years is this going to last me? So when prices go up, it certainly causes a lot of stress amongst older adults who are relying on those fixed incomes. So it's very top of mind.
Well, I know, I had a conversation with a constituent a little while ago, and they told me that they went back to work, and I was like, why did you go back to work? Like, you've been retired for a few years. I'm kind of surprised. And she said, well, we calculated, and if I don't go back to work, we won't be able to live our lifestyle that we're currently living because we're going to run out of money because inflation, we can't afford to keep the house heated. We won't be able to afford internet. We won't be able to afford all these other things, and so I'm going back to work now while I still am able. Are you hearing that from any of the older adults that you guys are talking about, that they're going back to work just to be able to make ends meet?
So in our survey, we did look at retirement. We found that there are a proportion. First of all, retirement is changing, right? People are tending to work longer on average in Canada now than they used to. We do find that there are some older adults who have returned to work. It is a minority, according to our survey. We're actually doing a project right now to do a deeper dive on older adults in the workforce, so I'm happy to share that information once we've done the analysis. But I think it merits further investigation because people are struggling to make ends meet, and people are working longer because it's meaningful and they want to work longer. But there's also people who are working longer because they cannot afford to retire, and we need to be able to support those individuals with that pathway to retirement eventually, because some people can't physically, they have jobs that you can't physically continue at a certain point.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Mr. Lewis, for our last 2.5 minutes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to our witnesses. I'll try and get one question in each. Ms. Tassé Goodman, you mentioned in earlier testimony today the importance of home care itself, and home care being lacking as well. And a lack of home care can lead to isolation, and it can lead to more acute health care needs. Our seniors want to live in dignity, mostly senior women at this age, and age at home as long as possible. So we talk about upstream investments for the health benefits of the upstream investments, the social benefits. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. Can you put into record and possibly quantify the importance of upstream investments so seniors, women can stay at home and age there?
Alors, vous savez, j'ai parlé d'un plan global du gouvernement, que les ministères se parlent, donc c'est important qu'ils se concertent. Donc, quand on parle de transport pour les aînés, c'est important. Quand on parle de santé,
When we talk about access to healthcare services, once again, that's a vital ingredient. Now let's talk about guaranteeing funding to protect programs and community organizations and to offer a better return on investment. It's important, it's urgent to invest in creating a greater number of affordable housing units for aging Canadians. It's also crucial because the trend is already there. Seniors want to stay at home, and it's much less expensive to have people continuing to live at home rather than investing in big consortiums that are very expensive. So there are healthcare beds, long-term care as well. The population is going to double in 2035. According to Statistics Canada, a quarter of the population in Canada will be over age 65. That's a huge number in terms of an aging population.
Unfortunately, I'm out of time, but just enough time to say thank you to all our witnesses. Really appreciate your time.
Yes. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The witnesses mentioned studies and reports, and I was wondering if they would be able to send them in, all of them. Thank you.
Yes, and I will reiterate, if our witnesses have additional submissions to make, please do send them in to the clerk, and any studies that you have referred, as Ms. Cody said. Thank you very, very much for your testimony today. We really appreciate your contributions to this study, and with that, meeting is adjourned.